Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to Transitional Radio, the home of Brian Brody's All Natural Being, IPM Nation's Sneak Speaks, Lee Rawley's Copy That Speaks, and this, our 34th episode of Thinking Re-envisioned. Hi, everybody. My name is Henry G. Noel, your host for Thinking Re-envisioned. We are here to make you think, here to make you question, to question everything. Now, we are live this evening from our uplink studio in beautiful Cuenca, Ecuador. We are broadcasting live on IPMNation.com and Thinking Re-envisioned's Facebook and YouTube pages. I wish to thank all of our listeners from around the globe listening to us on live radio, those listening to our rebroadcasts, and you, our fly-on-the-wall video listeners, for taking the time to tune in. I would like to also acknowledge our newest listeners from Laos, South Africa, Vietnam, and the Czech Republic. I would also like to thank our good friends at Wirecast for making it possible for us to be broadcasting, both live and globally. And again, a big thank you to my brother Wayne for all that we throw at him, and I appreciate his handling all of that. So to all of our listeners who wish to participate in this show, please email me at henrygnoel.com. It is my desire to present a show where everyone can be as actively involved as they wish. Now, we trust you have had an enjoyable Monday thus far, and I hope that that continues. I wish to also thank you for joining me this Monday evening. And I thought, and although when I thought, that's a scary proposition all in itself, I just figured that tonight that we'd keep the headiness to a minimum and just kind of talk. We survived another holiday season and we completed another trip around the sun. So, what are your plans for 2019? I know the tradition is to make an attempt or to keep the resolutions, but making resolutions has never been part of my practice. But what about you? What would you like to see accomplished, or what would you like to accomplish, or what would you like to see happen in 2019? I know we all have concerns and we all have these desires to see things go well and to be well with everything. And so I just wanted to know exactly what it was that you were thinking about, as far as whether you want to call it a New Year's resolution or just a something that you'd like to see happen. So anyway, I just wanted to go ahead and say hi to everybody that's here. Jamie, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, and Happy New Year to you. Kathy, thank you again for joining. And Happy New Year to you too. And my brother Wayne, also thank you. And Derek, great listening to you on the show, man. That's really cool. Thank you, and thanks for helping Brian out. We know he needs it, but I appreciate you jumping in there and keeping him from getting hurt. He's been banged up enough. Thank you, Kathy. I never make resolutions. Paul, how are you? And welcome. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you are having some pretty good weather over there. And Candace, always peace to you too. Thank you. And again, thank you for joining this evening. I know you have a lot of things that you could be doing at this time of the evening. So joining me is deserves a great thank you from me. So again, thanks a million for joining in. And I wanted to keep it a bit lighter tonight rather than get into all the heady stuff. We got a whole year now to get into heady stuff, but just wanted to kind of talk back and forth and see what it is that you would love to see happen for 2019. I mean, we've gone through so much in the past, and it'd be nice to know what your desires are, what you would like to see happen. I mean, with all of the things that are going on with transitional radio, Brian is getting ready for the 81 to win. And of course his show still being #1 on IPMNation.com. Of course, IPMNation.com having its sneak speaks. Lee Rawley being part of transitional radio now with Lee Rawley's show. We are working on trying to establish a show from down here dealing with the expat magazine, the Cuenca expat magazine that is here. We're going to try to go on air, literally, with the magazine, and be able to talk about things more in depth, I would think, because with printed material, you have just so much space you can fit stuff in. So a lot of times you have to cut stories short, so we can actually get a little bit more in depth into some of the articles and the things that are going on, and of course talk about what's going on in Cuenca at the moment. But then as we expand, I think the magazine is looking to expand into different cities, and so we'll be able to talk about more about what's going on the coast, what's going on in the capital, and get a little bit more into some of the politics and some of the stuff that goes on here in Ecuador. And it gives you guys a feel for more of what's happening. I know, as I was talking about last night, Ecuador is a hot spot for people to retire to come to live and to set up businesses. And so it's been working out really well for the city of Cuenca, because it is growing tremendously. But as everybody realizes and knows, that a great thing, such as a growth of a city, also brings itself with its own set of headaches. So the city is working through all of the issues that it's trying to deal with, and it's doing a bang-up job. It really is doing a good job with it all. And so I think pushing it out and getting more information about different places around the world, I think would be informative for everybody. At least I would hope it would be. And again, your ideas, your thoughts on it would be greatly appreciated. So yes, that's part of the plan, is to bring in additional shows, and I think that's really what it's all about. Trying to expand the base of what we're trying to do, and we're going to start off a few things this Thursday. I think we're going to try to do actually simply an interview. You'll be able to watch it live and just go through the whole concept with us as we test our wings and expand this whole process. I mean, I'm still trying to get it comfortable with this whole being in front of a camera and dealing with radio. And as I try to continue to get comfortable, which is not happening, Brian, I think you lied to me. You don't ever get comfortable doing this. I would like to do an interview or have a talk with a gentleman that's from the U.S. visiting here, and anyway, we'll get into all of that come on Thursday. So Candace says, I can't fix the world, just keep working on fixing myself. Thank you, Candace, and I appreciate the input. Some of the things that we can do, and a lot of the things that we can do. Thank you, Kathy. I greatly appreciate it. Believe me, we're far from fine, but we're trying to do the best we can. But I think yes, I think a large part of these the resolutions and things that people do try to give to themselves as a goal in order to accomplish something is to try to improve themselves in some form or fashion. Some is giving up snack food, some is eating better, or just exercising, and sometimes it just doesn't last very long because the commitment wasn't there. It was simply it's something that you do at New Year's, is you make a resolution. Well, that kind of a foundation isn't really very good for people surviving and succeeding in resolutions. I mean, it's something you have to really want to do, and so therefore I think it's more than just simply a resolution. I think we have to really want to do things that help us, and I think we are the focus. We should be, and it's not being selfish at all. I think it's rather poignant, and I think it's rather brilliant to place yourself number one. By placing yourself number one, at least you are around to help out number two. I mean, it's really important that we do the things that we can do to take care of ourselves. Kath says, I've never been out of the U.S. Maybe I should strive for that. And I think there's Kathy, I think that it is a great experience for everybody. So many people that I know in the United States have never been out of the United States, or if they have, they've been on a cruise. Okay. But to get into another country where we did to come here, not speaking Spanish, we had to learn it, and the culture, of course, is totally different, and so in order to acclimate and to become part of it, you have to give something up. You have to really put an investment into it, and I think that's what we really do need to do, and I think. Not just United States or Norte American. It's not just the United States and Canada, but I think people from all over the world. Europe has a little bit of an advantage over the United people living in the United States because Europe are tiny, small countries, and they have grown up taking weekends and going to different countries just for a weekend vacation, and it's nothing to be living in France and drive to Switzerland, or drive to Spain or to Portugal, over the weekend. You can do that. So with the small countries, it's easy enough to do. And with the EU structured to support each other that way, they've made it so simple. It's just simply you just go. In US, you do the same thing, but it's only going from one state to another, unless you live in Texas, in which case, that's got to be a week's vacation in itself to try to get across that state. But and I'm married to a Texan, so I can say that. But it's important, I think, that people in the United States experience other cultures and other countries, and really get a better understanding as to what's going on within those countries. I mentioned yesterday about how we here are having such an influx of immigrants coming in from Venezuela because of the conditions that Venezuela is in. I mean, tremendously horrendous conditions, politically and economically. I mean, the inflation rate is in the thousands of percent. They end up coming up with their own currency in order to try to compensate for it. It's a digital currency. It's a mess, and they're leaving in by the hundreds of thousands or millions probably, and it's hard. It's very, very tough. And so countries like Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, Chile, Brazil are taking these immigrants in order to help them, to give them another start. I mean, they have left everything behind. I mean, I've talked to several of them, interviewed several of them, and it was they simply locked their door to their house, and they drove away or walked away, and that's it's gone. I mean, they're done, and so they've had to leave things. We've never been in the United States. We've never been in a situation where you had to leave a state, where the government was collapsing so bad, and was so militant that you feared for your family's life, and you had to leave that state, leave your city, leave your state, leave everything you own behind, and get out with just your lives. We don't have that as an experience, and it is amazing to talk to people that have done that and are doing everything they can to make ends meet in order to provide for their family. And so it's really tough, and we don't get that experience living in the States. We have it pretty cush, and the rest of the world is not that cush. It's just not that comfortable, and so you wonder why people keep going to the United States. Well, the dreams are still there for people, is to live in freedom, to live with rights, to have and create a better life, and and knowing that your life is in danger, that your life is on the line, and then find out that the people in that country don't even want you there. It's hard. It's an extremely difficult situation to see people in, and to see that the United States as we know it, and I grew up in the 50s, knowing that was a country of immigrants. I mean, my grandmother was from Canada. My grandfather was from Japan. My other two grandparents were also from Canada. So, I mean, I was one generation out of just not having been born in this country, and so, it was built on being a country of immigrants, the Irish, and the French and the British, and all of the different countries from Europe that people moved from, Spain and Portugal and Italy, and to realize that's no longer acceptable with the population within the country. It's extremely difficult to take as someone from the United States to realize that, wow, my own grandparents today would not even be welcome in the country, and you got to shake your head at what changed, what went wrong, why is it that's the way we are, why are we so angry, and is it simply because of fear? I mean, I really don't know, and I mean, I'd love the input because I really don't know. I mean, like I said, as I live in Ecuador, and I've been accepted here as a resident in Ecuador, and I mean, with open arms. I mean, no issues at all here as far as that is concerned. Acceptance has been great. They've changed the immigration laws and have made some modifications and things like that, but that hasn't deterred anybody, and nor has it put up any roadblocks for people to come and become a resident in Ecuador. Kathy says, I think they are welcome. They are welcome. People they just want them to do it legally, and I totally get that, Kathy, and I agree. I mean, that's what we do here. We went through with all the paperwork. We did all the correct filings, got our cedulars, our green cards, and those are our resident cards, and so we are, we did it legally, and I think you're right, and I think the legal side of it is extremely important, and you're right, but when you look at an immigration law that is preventative for a lot of people to become legal too, is also, I think, another major issue. Candace says, I still believe that people have to be vetted and enter legally. There are good and bad. Yes, absolutely true, Candace, and you're right. And we've seen that here. We've had people from North America show up here in Ecuador and did all the proper processing, and found out they were wanted by the FBI. And so they go back. So it does happen. It's difficult. It's right. Things need to be done correctly, and they need to be done legally. But I think the laws also need to be placed in effect that actually allow and help those that wish to become legal, but may not have $100,000 in order to become legal, or may not have the documentations. You come from countries in Europe that have been former Czech republics, or former communist countries, that don't have their birth certificate, they don't have any evidence of who they are. How do you vet that? Because those records have been long since gone. It's tough. It's such a convoluted and very complex problem that really needs to be looked at, I think, overall. Kathy says, I'm German Irish, yep, and I'm French and Japanese, or French Canadian and Japanese. Candace says, I think a lot of the people are misinformed about the process, and that's a very good possibility, Candace. I would have to admit that, not having been born in the United States and being an American citizen, I never really followed the law until after I left, and then started looking into why it was so hard for people to become citizens in the United States. And you're right. If it's a 5-year wait or a 10-year wait, then that's what it is, and you still have to go through the process and go legally. And if you are there in the United States on a visa and your visa runs out, then you should be leaving the country, not staying behind and being there, illegally. So I agree with you that. Lee, hi, right back at you, Lee. Happy New Year to you. And it's great. Thank you so much for joining it. Greatly appreciate it. Yeah, it's a tough, and I wasn't actually planning on talking about immigration, but that's where we go. And but I think that it is an issue, and I think it's serious enough that I think it'll be a topic on the shows that we will come up in the future, because I deal with I have a friend of mine here who has been feeding. Actually, he opened a soup kitchen here in Cuenca to feed the immigrants that have come in from Venezuela, specifically from Venezuela, and he feeds 150 people a day, most of them children, and he's looking like crazy trying to get funding to expand that. It's only 4 days a week that he can afford to feed them, and it's only 150 people, and so he really is looking to really expand all of that. And so we're trying to work on ways of getting funds and fundraising for him and contributions in that. So that's part of what we're working on down here. But it's a situation that is serious, and it is really a tough situation. And from us, it's in our face. It's right here. It's live as it happens. Candace says, my friend married an Aussie. Yep, and took him. It took him almost 2 years to go through the process. and be able to work and drive. So that's a person who is actually married to an American, and it still took almost 2 years to become legal, um, to go through the process. I know when we moved here in 2012, it took Rita and I think it was 6 weeks to actually get our paperwork processed and receive our residency card, our visa for one, and then our residency card. And so it was so much more streamlined than the United States' process is. And I really honestly, Candace, do not know all of those nuances within the federal law. So it becomes very difficult for me to really speak on behalf of the justification for the law. But I do know that it's extremely difficult. I know on this side, even to get a visa now to go to the United States, it is hard. And it is a process and a half down here to just get the permission to go into the United States. So it is tough. Candace says, yes, I was, oh, okay, no. Jamie says, if anyone knows a single Italian man, let me know. I love it, Jamie. Thank you so much. Candace says, yes, if it was a long time ago, if it was a long time and a lot of paperwork and calls, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of follow through, and I don't think there should be a lot of happening to follow through. I think people, when you file your paperwork, you go through the process, and people should notify you when you're done. But I think when people's visas run out is, I think, where we fail. As a department or as an immigration department, because it seems like once you come in, nobody follows up with you, and so you come into, let's say you come into Miami, and then your visa runs out, so it's time for you to leave. So you get on a bus and off you go to Chicago, and you mix in with the Chicagoans, and of course nobody knows that you're up there. They don't follow through. Now now they're trying to, I think, and trying to get that stuff going, but it's hard. It's a very volatile subject, and it has such really destructive components to it, especially if you're on the receiving end of being the immigrant that wants to go into the country. Excuse me just a second. So it is a tough thing to do, and it is hard, but it is something that we are dealing with right away here. So I thought there's part of the reason to talk about it. But what are you guys looking for to happen in 2019? What would you like to see change, whether it's being part of your life, or whether it's part of the government, part of the country itself, or the economics of it all? What would you like to see change, or what would you like to see happen in 2012? Besides Brian actually breaking the record for 81 to win. I mean, I can hardly wait that's going to be so much fun. Kathy says that, let's see, Jamie says the Scottish that plays bagpipes. There you go. Okay, says I have a friend in China, and he better get that visa renewed. Yeah, and that's something you have to keep up on. I know that's something. We've had our Ecuadorian driver's license now for 5 years. Before almost, it's actually, we have to renew it again this year, and of course that's taking the test, and in Spanish, of course, and going through that process again, which is fine. I mean, we went through it the first time, and I know they've changed a few things, but will have to start studying for that. And then to become a citizen in Ecuador, then there's a lot of things, just like the U.S. You got to be able to know what the national anthem is. Know how to say it, sing it. You have to know what the Constitution in Ecuador is about, and what all of the areas are, what all of the provinces are here in this country, and the capitals of all of those provinces. And so it's there's a lot of information, a lot of history we have to know, past presidents in Ecuador. So there's a lot of studying that has to be done in order to qualify as to become a citizen. Now, as a resident, you still have all the rights that a citizen has, including the right to vote here. In fact, it's mandatory. You will vote. This is a 100% vote country, and if you are Ecuadorian and you happen to be out of the country at the time, you better find an embassy because you have got to vote. Otherwise, they will fine you when you get back. So it is a very important thing. And they take their voting really serious here. If you're over 65, voting is an option. And I have been in line behind people that are in their 90s and they vote. I mean, so it may be an option to not have to vote, but they take it serious here and they vote. So I think that is that's a cool thing about it. And I think because they've had to deal with leadership in this country historically that were military dictators, and there were no elections. So when there's an election, these people vote and they take their pride in what they do. And it is, they walk around with their voter's card and they are just in your face with it. I voted, you know, and I love it. To me, it's really kind of cool. So yeah, it's something to see really the pride that they do take in their country and keeping their legislatures under control, because that's something they don't do elsewhere. You know, in the United States, the politicians aren't accountable for anything. You know, nobody holds them accountable. Nobody holds their feet to the fire. Nobody does anything except to just let them do what they're going to do, because they're going to do it anyway, I guess. And so they just say, write it off. Well, here, no, they don't. I mean, if there's a problem, there's a situation, there's something that someone's gotten way out of hand, they will run them out of office. And it's amazing. It's just absolutely amazing to see it down here. Let's see. We got okay. Candace says that can take a while. Yeah, it does. It does back and forth. Trying to get it all done. Kathy says no. It just meant when it's time to be renewed, and he has to, or he is in serious trouble if he doesn't. You know, and you're right. And that is something that is important. You know, that you got to stay legal with the documentation, no matter what country you live in. Michael, thank you for joining us. It's great to see your icon pop up there. And I hope you're doing well and content now. At least I sure hope you are. So it's great to see you're there. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're just chit-chatting tonight, Michael. Nothing important, just chit-chatting. We happen to get into the subject of immigration, so it's kind of a lot of fun. It really is. Jeremy says, Henry, if you know a single Ecuadorian, let me know. Well, I got a long list of single Ecuadorian men that I know, Jamie. So I have, we'll talk. We can talk offline. But yeah, we are we do have a lot of fun down here. We really do. And I do find it enjoyable. It can be challenging, of course. The language thing is really is hard. In fact, today's experience I had with it, I got to keep track of the time here. So I've got we're actually at about 9 o'clock, so I probably should be just getting offline here. So we started a few minutes later. But anyway, in fact, I'll try to remember, and I'll talk to you about this tomorrow, about just our experiences with the language differences. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go ahead and say goodnight. I'm going to, hope that you have a great evening. Buenas noches, good evening. And I hope that you tune in tomorrow. We'll go ahead and continue talking and just have a sit back before we get into the more brainiac stuff that we were dealing, all that heavy stuff that we have coming up the pipeline. So for everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great evening, and we will talk to you tomorrow. Thanks again. Hasta luego.